Hello, welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Auto major Mahindra and Mahindra is stepping on the pedal, adding more muscle to its electric vehicle push. British international investment will pump nearly 2,000 crore rupees into the company's new four-wheeler EV subsidiary. The deal values the business at up to 70,000 crore rupees, and it will result in 2.7 to 4.76% ownership for British international investment in the EV arm. The total capital infusion for the new EV company is envisaged to be approximately 8,000 crore rupees between FY24 and FY27. Joining me now to take this discussion forward is Shamsher Dewan, Senior Vice President and Group Head at ICRA. Also joining us is Ashim Sharma, Senior Partner at Nomura Research Institute. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. How is this going to help Mahindra and Mahindra, Ashim? Mahindra is clearly late to the EV party, which is currently dominated by Tata Motors. But at the same time, the EV passenger car segment is just 1% of a market which is 3 million strong.
Right. So I think for Mahindra, we can't say they're actually late to the party. They also have a prior experience of having sold EVs with the E2O and the Vericho over the past couple of years. So I'm sure they would have gained a lot of market experience from that. Yes, today the electric vehicle market is still minuscule at about 1%, but as estimates show, by 2030, this could grow anywhere between 10 to 15, or even in the most optimistic case, around 20%. So at that stage, yes, we will have substantial number of EV models coming in from the likes of Tata Motors, Mahindra, and also the likes of Maruti, Hyundai, and the others joining in. So at that stage, yes, anybody who begins work on this today is set to reap the benefits come, say, 2027, 2030.
All right, let me also welcome Shamsher Dewan into this discussion. Shamsher, we've often spoken about electric vehicle penetration. It seems that the inflection point has definitely come when it comes to two-wheelers. But what about cars? Today we heard Rajesh Jejurikar, Anisha saying that they expect between 20 to 30% of total SUV sales to be electric by March 2027. At 30%, they expect volumes of about 200,000 SUVs per year. Do you think this is a realistic number looking at the current estimates?
Yeah, hi Parikshit. Thanks for having me on this show. So certainly, I think I agree with Ashim and your views as well that certainly there is an inflection point which has come in for the electric vehicle space in India, and it is being led by the two-wheeler space and the three-wheeler space. Although we are seeing a lot of traction in the electric bus space as well, which is currently restricted to the STU segment and followed by passenger vehicles now. While at present we are at about 1% of the market, but we also believe that we are going to see an exponential rise in the demand for electric vehicles, and especially when most of the other OEMs also step in, OEMs like Mahindra and Mahindra, Maruti Suzuki, and Hyundai, which have a very strong presence and brand recall in the Indian market, supported by their extensive distribution network. Certainly, the numbers are going to go up. At ICRA, we believe that by 2025, the penetration of electric vehicles in the passenger car segment will be about 4 to 6%. This number looks a little low for the next 2 years because a lot of the new product development is currently underway, and we expect a lot of new launches to happen sometime by the end of this fiscal or next fiscal. So accordingly, by 2025, I think the penetration will be about 4 to 6%, but certainly by 2030, ICRA estimates that number to go up to anywhere between 15 to 20%.
All right, and that is just in the passenger car segment or overall?
That's in the passenger car segment, yeah. But in other segments, we expect much higher penetration.
So 15. Okay, so 15 to 20% penetration in the EV segment for cars by 2030. That is what Shamsher is saying. Ashim, according to your estimates, how is the EV passenger car market set to grow over the next few years? And how do you think the competition will be between Tata Motors and Mahindra?
Shamsher. I mean, my guess would be slightly lower in terms of penetration, maybe 10 to 15%, somewhere there. But at the same time, when we look at 2030, we do expect that most people will be coming up with what is called a born EV or a pure EV platform. So today, when Tata Motors uses an ICE platform and they've lashed on the EV powertrain onto that, but they have plans of doing that in the future with the Avinya concept that was unveiled. And similarly, Mahindra is also talking of the born EV platform coming in. So in the future, I think it will become similar to what it is in ICE, that we are seeing all OEMs come up with bespoke EV platforms and competing with each other on these. However, at the overall level, I think still, the 3 C's of cost competitiveness, consumer acceptance, and charging network have to be resolved in part. Consumer acceptance is increasing because mass market OEMs will be launching more products. There'll be more variety out there, and you see a lot of cars on the road, so consumers will start opting for these more and more. Today, we see most of the sales, for example, in Nexon, a high percentage of that is also the second car that people are buying. But with more and more models being available, consumer acceptance should increase. On the cost competitiveness part, I think there's still some amount of work to be done. So we still don't have a sub 10 lakh EV out there, and that's where, when more mass market players start launching cars in that bracket, that's when we will see much higher penetration come in. So that is something that is yet to be attained. And as far as the charging network goes, again, because we do have a charging network that is increasing, but at the same time, the volume of EVs is also low. So we don't see so much of a challenge. But if we are looking at higher penetration in the Indian market, the charging network will also have to keep pace. So clearly, there is the potential and there is the expectation this will happen. But these factors of the cost competitiveness, charging network presence, as well as increasing consumer acceptance, sort of the 3 C's will be very important to be looked at in the future.
Right. Important points there, that we will need the charging network, a cost-effective EV, perhaps a sub 10 lakh EV for the market to really take off. Shamsher, if I can come to you at this stage, when it comes to the cost structure, what do you think will be a good number, a good cost for the EV market to really take off?
Yeah, so I think the cost structure or the break-even analysis has to be seen from a total cost of ownership perspective. What we believe is that if you look at the current environment, the most important piece of the electric vehicles is the battery cells and the battery pack overall, along with the battery management system. This collectively accounts for almost 35 to 40% of the cost of the vehicle. Could be even higher depending upon what is the size of the battery that we're talking about and the model. For OEMs to actually be able to gain cost competitiveness, it will be very critical for us to achieve localization on many of the components where we have very high import dependence, and battery cells will certainly be one of them. The government has come out with a PLI policy, as we all know, and recently there were certain awards which were also given out to certain companies. And we expect that over the next 3 years, some amount of local manufacturing will also come into place. That, coupled with the increase in volumes and all the localization drive which is going on towards indigenizing the components, particularly the motor control units and all the other electronics that go in, I think we'll be able to achieve fair amount of cost reduction over the next 3 to 5 years. At ICRA, we have estimated that what will be the level of battery pack cost which is required for the total cost of ownership to become equivalent to ICE at present. And if you look at that number, it'll be close to about anywhere between $90 to $100 per kilowatt hour. We are still some time away from that, and because of the increase in raw material cost over the past 1 year or so, and the FX impact that we are seeing right now, that number will get a bit delayed or deferred. But certainly, I think with increase in volumes and localization initiatives, over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be able to achieve a break-even on the total cost of ownership without taking into account any material subsidies being available from either the central government or the state EV policies.
So you're saying battery pack costs must come down to $90 to $100?
Yes.
Okay, let me get Ashim again at this point. Ashim, how do you see this investment that has come into the Mahindra Group and the importance of the Mahindra Group hiving its electric vehicle business off into a new subsidiary? We have been seeing this trend. Tata Motors did that. Bajaj Auto has set up a separate EV company, and many others are following suit. So do you get a sense that global investment firms, private equity firms, they are more keen to invest in separate electric vehicle entities rather than a complete traditional OEM?
Yes, definitely, because many of the products from even the established OEMs in the EV space need to compete with startups which are working in this manner. So it's a well-known fact that with EVs in the initial layers, the investors will be much higher. You will not be making profits, and therefore to hive off your EV unit into a separate entity, one brings in all the flexibility that would be needed because you're not managing a very large business which has its own legacy effects as well. And the second is, yes, you can run it like a startup where you are making those investments and with expected returns only coming much later in the future because the market remains minuscule, and therefore you become akin to the startups in terms of your structure. But at the same time, because you're backed by a strong parent, the manufacturing prowess is there, which then makes it slightly more attractive also for investors when hived off into a separate unit. If you're now, I also want to make a small point on what Shamsher was saying on the battery prices. I think while those figures are there, I think it'll be very important for manufacturers in India to be able to secure the raw material or the intermediate components for batteries for us to realize those low price levels. As things stand today, because large part of the lithium supply in the world has been locked in by large OEMs who have huge volumes. Therefore, if we need to achieve those kind of prices, we'll need to act fast and secure those supplies either of the raw material or the intermediate materials to be able to realize the kind of price levels that we just heard.
Okay, and one very quick question, Ashim. When we look at both these companies, Tata Motors and Mahindra, who do you think is better placed to take a pole position in electric vehicles in the future? Here you have Tata Motors, which is considering semiconductor manufacturing, which is considering battery manufacturing. They are backed by TCS. They are backed by Tata Chemicals, Tata Powers, charging stations across the country. They already have a lead when it comes to electric vehicles. They are going to be taking over Ford's plant in Gujarat as well. Who do you think is better positioned for taking a pole position in EVs for the future, Ashim?
So that's a tough one to predict right now, Parikshit. But how I would say today is, yes, clearly Tata Motors is selling and has that advantage of putting its products out there in the market and of the tie-ups that you said. But similarly, Mahindra is now already started that journey, and they have that past history also. Because they were at that time the first movers in the EV space. So because it is a new tech area and things are changing rapidly, we could very well see sort of normalization of a few years here and there happen quite quickly. One case in point is, for example, Tesla. I mean, Tesla started much later than many other OEMs. But yeah, it did gain a pole position, and today we see that the ones who probably started a bit later, like Volkswagen, are now challenging its position in certain markets. So it's difficult to say. I think both players are making the right moves, and we would also see the other players in the Indian market also make some of these moves, and therefore it will be an interesting era in the EV space, akin to how we see in the ICE space in the years to come.
Right. Thank you very much, Ashim and Shamsher Dewan, for joining us here on News Center, giving us your view on the Indian EV ecosystem, the investments that are coming into Mahindra and Mahindra, and who is better positioned for the future. Well, we can't answer that because the EV penetration is still very low. And as Anisha also pointed out, we are only in the first 5 to 10 overs of the electric vehicle test match. Thank you once again for joining us here on CNBC TV18. We're heading into a break, but coming up on the other side, the centre has directed edible oil associations to cut prices by 15 rupees with immediate effect. A special discussion with Piruz Khambata of Rasna on the other side.